Hi everybody, I'm Matt with Art Therapy Studio, and we're back with another Expressive Art Thursday art activity today. And my guest with me.
I'm Jessie. I'm one of the interns at the Art Therapy Studio.
Thanks for joining me today, Jessie. What we're going to be doing today, folks, is we're going to be doing what's called string pulling. So what this involves is using any kind of yarn or string, and then we're going to be dipping it into kind of dye. So I'm going to be using food color dye. You could use, there's different variations. There's watercolor dye. Okay, so what we have is, when we used this before, we have either mixed media paper, watercolor paper, something more thicker to kind of hold that liquid, any kind of yarn that you have, even any kind of string, like thicker string will work. I've also brought food coloring dye. So with these, I'm using just a few drops, and I put in some water in here also. You could change the ratio of the water to dye if you want something lighter. I would use less dye, more water. If you want more of a bold color, you could use more dye and less water. So what we're going to do to start, so you could use your one base sheet of paper, and then your string design. What I'm going to do is show this to you folks first without the dye. When you dip in the dye and then you place your yarn on the paper, we're going to put another sheet on top. Cardboard. This is going to keep it secure so your paper doesn't go moving. We're then going to pull our yarn outward like this, and I would recommend pulling away from you. Try not to pull towards you. If you have nice clothes on, I'd probably get them covered up today, or wear something on you that you don't mind getting any dye on. And what happens is, as we pull this off, you can just kind of set those aside. Then when you're done with that, you would remove this, and this would be the design. I'm just going to dip my yarn in, keep the dye off your fingers. I'm going to use just this big paper clip I found, and then slowly pick up the yarn. And what I'm going to do is just kind of make some freeform designs here. What I recommend too is, after you apply your yarn, your ends I would apply off the page. That way when you go to press this down, you can always see your ends where they're at, and they're not lost under the paper. Yesi, how you doing with yours so far?
Doing good. I'm using watercolor for mine because I have a watercolor palette. So
Good.
when I do mine, I put water inside of my color that I've chosen, and then I just kind of put my string through that color. Use my brush to help me push it along, so then I get it dyed the color I want.
I like that variation. And folks at home, I know we have done quite a bit of dyeing with the art. This is just another variation. You can really manipulate colors any way you want. With this, you can create really interesting design. You could have pre-cut strands of the yarn or string that you're using. You can also change the length of the yarn or the string. So on the next one I'm going to show you folks, with just the decorative yarn, I picked a longer piece. I would recommend just sticking with a color for each piece of yarn. The more you blend, the more muddled the colors will get, so they won't be as noticeable. And if you like, you could also wear gloves, or you could even just use your hands. And like I've mentioned too, for the folks at home, these expressive art videos are really great for finding your self-expression, also finding some wellness, maybe some self-care in the art for you. So looking for maybe that relaxation we need, or some peacefulness as we're creating arts. Just kind of turn off your phones, turn off the TV, any kind of distractions. Okay, so before this dries up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pressing mine and pulling the yarn. Doing okay so far, Yesi?
Yep, I just put my cardboard over top.
Cool.
And now I'm gonna start pulling.
Awesome, me too. Give this a good press. And then cardboard on. And the amount of pressure that you press down could vary. So as you're pulling, just be aware of that so you don't have a piece just kind of flying out at you. Just be careful. And you could also change the direction of the yarn. Like I said, be careful pulling that so it doesn't jump on your clothes. Okay, so let's see what this one looks like. Interesting. There was more water in my holes that I've used as compared to the ratio of the dye. So it wasn't a really defined line in my art making, but it really blended a lot of the colors interestingly. So you kind of come up with two pieces of artwork here. You have your bottom layer and your top layer. What I'm going to show you next is just take the yarn like this and just kind of manipulate it into designs that way. Instead of pressing and pulling, I'm just going to kind of stamp it now. You can also re-dip if you want. I would recommend too remembering what color was each piece of yarn, because if you do start combining those and mixing, your colors will get kind of muddled. So really light colors that are coming up with this, almost kind of pastel looking. How did yours come out so far, Yesi?
Mine came out really bright, but I didn't use as much water.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow. And that's a great example. The line marks on the top middle of the paper. The thread was pulled and then it kind of paused. Yesi, could you just point to that very top parts? Yep, perfect, right there. Excellent, thank you. So that's really that more of like, I'll say like a classical string pulling design look. And especially that part in the bottom too, where it's that, yep, there and there especially, yep, where you can see that's where the yarn started, and then it just kind of drags and the color kind of pulls with it. So great looking on that one, really interesting. Awesome.
Sometimes I find it helpful if my string has a lot of paint on it. I'll squeeze my string out so it still has color on it, but it's not super soaked. And then you get more of that line pattern show up.
Okay, getting my hands messy. So I'm going to take your suggestion, Yesi, and I'm going to wring mine out so that it's less watery in my yarn. And I just get more of the straight dye. I'm going to see how that looks. And one thing I can already tell with mine is I think I may have wrung out too much of the water, where now this is going to be very light. Oh, that came out pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty bright.
Yeah. Let's see. And then I'm going to mix this color with another. And what I also like about the string pulling is it really lends itself to being okay with mistakes, where this is a controlled art piece, but it really kind of is surprising how it comes out. So the way you think it will come out, you may get that, but also it could come out completely different.
Yeah, I like not knowing what it's going to look like until after I pull.
And this is also kind of more of, I guess you'd call it a non-traditional type of art piece. We're using string today as kind of our paintbrush. Doing okay so far, Jesse?
Yep, I just did a couple of lines and now I'm gonna do a pull.
Cool.
How it looks together. I feel like when you pull the string, it has this really cool floral or leafy effect.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. That's a good word for it. Yeah, that reminds me of a great resource for really any kind of art design. If you folks are interested at home, if you have internet connection, is YouTube. So YouTube has a lot of great artists, a lot of great art tutorials. And this one is specifically with the string pulling, it really does display a flower-like pattern. So if you're ever interested, if you ever want to explore more online at home with really any kind of art, YouTube is a great resource. And kids at home can also try this too. Parents, like I mentioned, just be noticeable of the mess. This can definitely get a lot of splattering and splashing with the dye, but that's okay. Okay, so I think I'm at about a stopping point. So I'm gonna bring my camera up. So this was my other piece. So as I was creating, I think I really started going towards just to kind of show folks kind of where the art can go. I started originally with this background design of just these loops kind of moving around with that bluish green color. And this was the second color I used, this reddish purple. This color here, I didn't realize I had a little bit too much water, so it just kind of blended the entire part of that. So you don't really see any line definition, but that's okay. Just something to take note of. This over here, I really wrung out the water there, so you can really see more of a clear line definition there. It's really kind of neat just how it comes out. It's really kind of a surprise sometimes. That's really cool about art sometimes. How did your piece come out, Jesse?
I started with this blue and purple swirl where I just pressed down the string and I didn't pull it. And then I did the pull of the green and the purple and the yellow. So I got that really cool, almost leaf floral.
Mm-hmm.
Feels very springy.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, great job. I really like your art today too. Really interesting. Nice work.
Thanks. Yours too.
Thank you. All right, folks. Well, we are at a wrap for today. Thanks for joining us again for another Expressive Art Thursday video, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.